Have you ever wanted to give someone a suggestion in English, but then you stopped yourself? Maybe you thought, what if I sound rude? Or what if I say it the wrong way? Or even worse, what if they misunderstand me completely? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Making suggestions in English can feel tricky. It's not just about the words. It's about tone, confidence, and timing. But here's the good news. You don't need perfect English to give a good suggestion. You just need a few simple tools and a little practice. So today, I want to help you feel more confident. We're going to talk about how to make suggestions in English naturally, politely, and clearly. And I want you to imagine something as you listen. Imagine you're talking to a friend. You're relaxed. You're smiling. You're not trying to be perfect. You're just sharing an idea. Because that's what a suggestion really is. It's not an order. It's not a command. It's just an idea. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever been in this situation? A friend says, I'm tired all the time. And in your mind, you're thinking, you should sleep earlier, but you don't say it. Or maybe a colleague says, I don't understand this topic. And you think, maybe you can watch a video. But again, you stay quiet. Why? Maybe you don't feel confident. Maybe you're afraid of making a mistake. Or maybe you're not sure how to sound polite. Let's fix that today. First, let's start with one of the simplest and most common ways to make a suggestion. You can say, why don't you? For example, why don't you take a break? Why don't you try a different method? Simple, right? Now pause for a second and repeat after me. Why don't you try something new? Good. This structure is friendly. It doesn't sound too strong. It feels like a gentle push. But maybe you're thinking, what if I want to sound even softer? Then you can use, maybe you could. For example, maybe you could talk to your teacher. Maybe you could start with something small. Do you hear the difference? Why don't you? Feels direct but friendly. Maybe you could. Feels softer, more careful. Let's try one together. Maybe you could practice every day. Nice. Now, let me share a small story. A few years ago, I had a student who was afraid to speak English. Every time I asked a question, she would look down. She knew the answer, but she didn't speak. One day, instead of saying, you should speak more, I said, maybe you could try answering just one question today. Just one. And something changed. It felt possible. It felt safe. That's the power of a good suggestion. It doesn't pressure someone. It invites them. So here's a tip for you. When you give suggestions, make them small. Make them simple. Don't say, you should change everything. Say, maybe you could try this one thing. Now, let's look at another useful phrase. How about? For example, how about going for a walk? How about trying a new approach? This one is great for casual conversations. It feels relaxed, almost like you're brainstorming together. Let's practice. How about studying together this weekend? Good. Now I want you to notice something important. When you make a suggestion, your tone matters more than your grammar. You can use perfect grammar, but if your tone is too strong, it may sound like a command. For example, you should do this. Sometimes this is okay, but sometimes it can feel too direct. So what can you do? You can soften it. You can say, I think you should try this. Or, you might want to try this. Do you hear how that changes the feeling? It becomes more friendly, more respectful. Now let me ask you a question. Do you usually give suggestions easily in your own language? Or do you also hesitate? Because sometimes it's not just about English. It's about confidence. It's about thinking, is my idea good enough? Let me tell you something. Your idea doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be helpful. Even a simple suggestion can make a big difference. Let's go back to real life. Imagine your friend says, I feel stressed. You don't need a big solution. You can say, maybe you could take some time to relax. Or, how about listening to some music? Small ideas, simple words, but they show care. And that's what matters. Now, let's practice combining ideas. You can start with a soft phrase, and then add your suggestion. For example, I think maybe you could try waking up earlier. Perhaps you could talk to someone about it. Let's try one together. Perhaps you could start with a short lesson. Great. Now here's another tip. Use questions. Suggestions often sound better as questions. Instead of saying, do this, you can say, why don't you try this? Questions feel lighter. They give the other person a choice. And people like having a choice. Now let's reflect for a moment. Think about your daily life. Do you ever need to give suggestions? Maybe to your students, your friends, your family. Of course you do. And every time you stay silent, that's a missed opportunity. Not just to help someone, but to practice your English. So next time, don't wait for perfect words. Just try, even if it's simple, even if it's not perfect, because confidence grows through action. Let me share another short story. I once had a conversation with a friend who wanted to improve her English. She kept saying, I don't know where to start. And I said, how about listening to a short podcast every day? That's it. Nothing complicated. A few weeks later, she told me, that small suggestion helped me so much. And I thought, sometimes we underestimate simple ideas. So here's something I want you to remember. Your suggestion might be exactly what someone needs, even if it feels small to you. Now, let's practice a few more expressions. You can say, you could try. It might help if you. One idea is two. For example, you could try reading out loud. It might help if you write every day. One idea is to practice with a friend. Let's repeat one together. It might help if you practice speaking every day. Nice. Now take a deep breath and think about this. What is one suggestion you can give yourself today? Yes, yourself, because you also need guidance. Maybe you could wake up earlier. Maybe you could practice for 10 minutes. Maybe you could speak without fear. Say it to yourself. Maybe I could try today. Good. You say, making suggestions is not just about talking to others. It's also about how you talk to yourself. If you say, I must be perfect, that's pressure. But if you say, maybe I could improve step by step, that's encouragement. And encouragement helps you grow. Before we finish, I want to leave you with a simple challenge. Today, make one suggestion, just one, to a friend, to a student, to yourself. Keep it simple, keep it kind, and don't worry about being perfect, because the goal is not perfection. The goal is communication. So next time you feel that hesitation, that small voice saying, don't say it, you might be wrong. Pause, smile, and try anyway. You might be surprised at how natural it feels and how powerful your words can be. So, how about starting today?